Good evening, and thank you for coming tonight to the Missoula County Board of Adjustment meeting for June. At this time, uh, Heather, if you could call the roll, please.
Andy Medford.
Here.
Andy Medford is here. Jerry Ford. Here. Jerry Ford is here. Paul Forstein.
Present.
Paul Forstein is here. Babak Raskafard. Babak Raskafard is absent. Ryan Schumacher.
Here.
Ryan Schumacher is here. Maggie McCall.
Here.
Maggie McCall is here. Mark Kobos.
Here.
Mark Kobos is here. And Chair, there are 4 members and 2 alternates present this evening. Would you like to appoint the first alternate as a voting member
Yes, we would at this time.
for the entire meeting?
Yes. I think, though, too, we were going to have some of us, including myself, that have to recuse ourselves from voting and being involved with one of the hearings tonight. So I will not be able to be involved with the Coke hearing this evening. So I will have to recuse myself, and I believe Andy has something to say.
Yeah, I have the same conflict, so I'll abstain from any action on that item.
Correct. So for the Coke hearing, Maggie will be a voting member, but for the other items, you will not be.
Just for the Coke, and then once we get to the second hearing, then there'll be the regular members that will vote on that, okay? All right, thank you. All righty, so after that has been cleared up, let's go ahead and move ahead with approval of the meetings from April 18th meeting. Is there any discussion or anything that needs to be changed on those meeting notes?
I move that we approve the meeting minutes as proposed.
We have a motion.
I second that motion.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? So can we have a voice vote on that? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. At this time, we will open the meeting up for public comment for items that are not on the agenda. Again, these are for items not on the agenda. Is there anyone that wishes to speak for an item not on the agenda at this time? Seeing none, we'll move forward. Okay. Are you okay? Okay. So we'll move to the public hearing number 1, Coca-Cola High Country variance request. Before Lauren starts with the staff report again, we'll just remind everyone again that I have a conflict on this project, so I will not be participating, and Andy Medford will not as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Paul Forstein. Paul will run the rest of the hearing with regard to the Coke High Country variance. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Lauren, do you have a staff report for us?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Lauren Miller, planner with Community and Planning Services. This is a request by Marie Wilson of Intuitive Architecture on behalf of Coca-Cola High Country for 2 variance requests from the Missoula County zoning regulations. The subject property that we are looking at today is legally described as Lot A of Missoula Development Park Phase 3D and is zoned in the Missoula Development Park Light Industry. The property is within the pre-application phase for a 5-lot minor subdivision. Lot lines are preliminary and potentially subject to change through the subdivision review process. The applicants are constructing a Coca-Cola warehouse and distribution center and are requesting a variance to allow for off-street loading in the front yard. The second variance request the applicant is requesting is to allow for internally illuminated signs, which are only allowed for commercial, retail, and service uses that are open for business at night. Here's a closer view of the subject property. The property is approximately 18.2 acres and is within the Missoula Development Park. The zoning allows for warehouses and related distribution. The property is within the 1995 Airport Development Park Comprehensive Land Use Plan, which designates this area for commercial and light industrial development. Here's a photo of the existing site today. It's currently vacant and surrounded by a mix of commercial development and open space. The topography is relatively flat. There's little vegetation existing on the site. Here's a look at the proposed site plan of the warehouse. The first variance request that the applicant is requesting is to allow for off-street loading in the front yard, which would create 4 overhead doors facing the internal cul-de-sac street to be constructed. The property is located on a corner lot, creating 2 front yards and therefore making it difficult to not have these overhead facing doors not within one of the front yards. Here's a closer look at that proposed site plan. Parking for visitors and employees will be at the front of the building, while the heavier truck traffic will be located towards the rear. The northernmost driveway of the property will be for trucks only, which will be used for trucks to go directly to the rear of the building and then exit through those 4 pass-through overhead doors at the front of the warehouse. The layout of the lot and the current size really allows for trucks to only enter and exit the building safely through the front of the building. There's only 55 feet from the side yard, which doesn't allow for enough space for these trucks to exit the building safely or effectively. The owner did note in their application that this proposed site layout is driven mostly for their concern for safety and to minimize pedestrian and vehicle traffic. Here's a view showing those 4 overhead doors at the front of the building. There will not be any loading within the front yard. Trucks will simply be exiting the building from the rear to be loaded and then will exit back on to the right-of-way from these overhead doors. These overhead doors are a necessary function for this type of use, and there are multiple properties in the Missoula Development Park that have received similar variance requests for this type of use. With this request, adjacent property owners 300 feet and agencies were notified, and there were no comments of concerns received with this variance for the off-street loading. The second variance request that the applicant is requesting is to allow for an internally illuminated sign. The Missoula Development Park light industry zoning permits an externally lit or backlit sign, and the reflected light shall not exceed a 1-foot candle. Here's a proposed look at the internally illuminated channel letter sign. The channel letter sign will be a total of 160 square feet and does not exceed the maximum allowance per zoning requirements. However, the proposed warehouse is not a commercial, retail, or service use and is not open for business at night, according to the application. The sign will be located to the north end of the building, which faces the interstate and existing residential across from the interstate. The applicant did not include details in the application as to whether or not there would be set hours as to when this sign would be on or off, so we reviewed the application with this knowledge. As discussed with the off-street loading, the topography of this location is relatively flat and is not a factor on this piece of property and is not a constraint for the type of sign that is needed. The internally illuminated channel letter sign is also not a necessary function of the warehouse for the use and is contrary to zoning regulations. Here's a couple photo examples provided by the applicant to help visualize potentially what the sign would look like. The proposed signage is 9 lumens per module, and it will be red in color. These photos provided by the applicant shows different views of the proposed warehouse from the surrounding areas. The top left photo gives an example of a potential future building if it were to go between the warehouse and the interstate. This example does show that the sign would still be visible from the interstate. However, that would be if the building were to go in this exact location and be that size. The photo on the bottom right, photo 4, shows a view of the warehouse from the furthest distance, which is approximately 3,500 feet from a residential neighborhood. and shows that the sign would still be visible from that distance. Again, with this proposal, agencies and adjacent property owners 300 feet were notified, and there were no comments or concerns received with this variance request. So for the off-street loading, based on the factors that I've presented and those noticed in the staff report, staff is recommending approval of the variance for the front yard facing doors. And for the internally illuminated sign, based on the factors and those presented in the staff report, staff is recommending denial of the variance request for the internally illuminated signage. And that concludes my staff report.
Thanks, Lauren. Do any board members have any initial questions for Lauren before we hear from the applicant? Hearing none, would the applicant or the applicant's representative like to speak about the project?
There you go. Thank you. My name is Marie Wilson with Intuitive Architecture. Thank you for your consideration of our special requests on behalf of Coca-Cola High Country. Of the two requests, also, we wanted to specifically thank you for recognition of the focus the applicant has on safety, which Lauren had mentioned. We've gone through some challenging exercises to maintain that pedestrian, truck traffic, and public traffic are separated. We also, I think Lauren did a great job explaining that while a future business may use the front yard for loading, while Coca-Cola runs resides in that building, all of the loading will happen either behind or within the building. The trucks will only exit through those front-facing, street-facing doors. Part of the safety factor is also driver awareness. The Coca-Cola branding and marketing theme is, their logo is very recognizable, and that is not by accident. The requested lighting source allows for them to maintain a sign that is in keeping with that branding and marketing image. This particular sign is what they have at other facilities. It would help drivers recognize when they are coming to that facility, visiting the facility, or returning to the facility after hours in darkness. Just being able to recognize where they are. It's not a wayfinding device. It's simply something that is in keeping with their marketing image. So thank you again for considering both requests, and I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant's representative? Nope. Well, we may have some for you, so let me open it up for public. Jerry, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering on that north side of that building.
Will you let him use your microphone for this one? Jerry doesn't have a microphone. Mark, maybe you could share it for him for just in this one.
I'm just wondering on the north side of that building where the signs are, if there are any buildings between that and the freeway.
There currently is not. There will be, in the proposed subdivision, one lot that would allow a building in that location. And there's also, I guess, there is a lot that is technically between the interstate and that lot that a building could be on, but it's strictly for billboards.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, I'll go ahead and open this request up for public comments. If there's anybody else who has would like to speak on behalf of this project, pro, against, and wants to put any comment on the record, please do so at this time. It seems like there's no public comments, and that's completely fine. So I'll go ahead and close the public comment period for this request. I'll move to board deliberations. Board members, it's our opportunity to discuss the project. There are two variances being requested. One is has a recommendation of approval. One has a recommendation of denial. Within the staff report, there's findings of facts regarding both of these requests. The findings of facts regarding the approval support the approval. The findings of fact regarding the denial support the denial. And so if just keep that in mind as we're discussing the different requests here in front of us, that that it's our obligation to establish findings of facts if contrary or in addition to what has been provided based on what we find, or if just note that we agree with the findings as proposed. So with that, I'll open up board discussions on the matter.
I guess I'll start by saying I lean toward following the staff's recommended motions. I thought the presentation was very clear and understandable. Sorry, Matt.
Yeah, that seems fair, Ryan. Jerry?
Well, I think no problem in having the sign as they're recommending,
As they're proposing or
as
as
they're proposing.
the applicant proposes?
Yeah.
You think that's,
Because there's enough space behind there that it's not going to bother.
you don't believe the illumination will interfere with
No.
the area?
No.
Regarding the sign, there was a discussion in the application and in the staff report regarding lighting of signs, backlit signs. Lauren, maybe can you add some depth on what would be approved? Maybe a little bit on the 1 foot candle and the concept there and opening, closing. There was a discussion on it and some kind of
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, the lumens and all that is kind of hard to interpret when you don't have a visual representation of what it's going to look like. So the externally lit signs, of course, can be backlit by a light or reflected to the front of it, while internally will be LED strips within the light themselves. In the research that I did, a 1 foot candle, which is what's permitted by zoning, translates to 10.76 lumens, which I know doesn't mean a lot without visual, and it's really hard to get a good example of that. And like stated in the staff report, the applicant in the application did not know whether or not there would be certain hours for when this sign would be on and off, or the business hours. Internally illuminated signs are permitted when the business is open at night and it's a retail business. And this business is warehouse and distribution, and as far as we could tell from the application, isn't open for business at night, therefore would not be allowed to have that internally illuminated sign. So yeah, visually it's a little bit hard to portray because they're just a bunch of numbers and stuff like that. But hopefully that answers the question
Yeah,
a little bit.
So if I understood it right, if you have you're permitted to have a sign for a commercial or retail business if your operations extend into the night.
Yep, that's correct.
Right.
Yep.
In Montana or Missoula, that means after 4 o'clock in the winter or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Does the applicant's representative want to give us any more information about the sign, the light or the sign?
I forgot to turn that off, sorry. A couple things that come to mind. One, there are, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the ground-mounted signs, even in the industrial, are allowed to be internally illuminated. So that quality of light is allowed out there. The number of what 1 foot candle equals, from what Lauren just said, exceeds the 9 lumens that our sign would have. So I'm curious if we were to meet or have that lower quality of light, which is part of what the discussion, before the application was, is that a backlit sign has an intense, a brighter light to it. So that's part of why we thought that internally illuminated would actually be less glaring to people, but still recognizable as Coca-Cola. So there was something else as you were speaking, but I've forgotten what it was.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. I assume the general intent, Lauren, is for the zoning district to have less light in the district. It just that's why we're precluding it from.
Yeah, and our main concern was this will, if you are on I-90, this will be one of the largest signs that will be facing the interstate right there in the Missoula Development Park. Dino's gas station has a sign, but other than that, there's not really any big signs there existing right now. So, adding this big bright sign and, potentially setting a precedent for other businesses to come in there to have a big bright sign. And also in consideration of those residents who will be able to view the sign that are existing across the interstate. It is across an interstate, but that sign would still be visible. And since we did not know if there was going to be any set hours, if it was going to be off at night, then we had to go with the information that we were provided.
Jerry?
Doesn't the backlighted sign take up more space?
It will be the same space. It'll just be a different source of lighting.
There's a sign limitation of.
Yeah, there is.
And this sign comes under that limitation, and
Yeah.
Yes.
and the other sign would.
Yep. Thanks.
Yep, absolutely, yeah.
Just so the sign, the metal piece of the sign would be the same size, but the amount of light, if you backlight it, would extend beyond what that technically the measurement was. And the hours, basically, they've said 8 to 9 o'clock, most people have returned. 3 or 4 is the earliest that most leave. People are there all night, but not necessarily the truckers.
The sign is half of the discussion. The other half is the front loading. And to me, this front loading seems very, I guess, straightforward and why it's needed, and seems like a good use of the property. Are there any comments regarding the?
No, they're not going to have any loading in the front of the building, so the trucks will just come out of the building and go on.
Yep.
So there won't be a big mess in the front yard.
Right, yeah.
So I approve that.
Yep. Good. Any additional comments regarding the lighting or the loading from the board members here? Any more
So-
discussion?
So I'm on board with the loading. I don't see an issue with that. And I guess, trying to follow regulation with the sign. I don't know if there's a way that we can set a limitation of when the sign's on based on the hours that their drivers are there. I guess I don't know.
Lauren,
how
is
that's
there any
set. Could you
flexibility with?
Clarify
Yeah.
that for me.
Yeah, so we were, proposing hours that the light, if that came up, that they could be on. So I kind of looked at, I couldn't find really any concrete examples as to when signs should be on or off, but based it off of, like you said, the sun obviously sets very early in the winter time. And later in the summer. So basing hours off of kind of a summer and winter hour. So what I was going to propose, in June, the latest it stays twilight is 10:14 p.m. is what I saw. And in November, twilight lasts until 5:30 p.m. and then it's dark. So summer hours, April to October, proposing the sign would be on from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. And winter, looking at November to March, potentially 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. is what we were looking at.
Does that sound reasonable to the applicant? Those hours?
It definitely sounds reasonable, but I think that they would prefer to do a backlit sign that would be able to be left on all the time.
Okay, and so that's
So-
just a diff. If that's.
I
yeah.
think so.
Okay.
I can't speak for them without them being here, but
Sure.
the interactions that we've had, that's kind of what they have alluded to.
Okay.
So,
Would you prefer that we continue talking about lighting hours, or just kind of move off the topic, so
I
to speak?
think move off the topic. I think, if there was a way to confirm, verify, set the amount of lumens that that were less than the minimum required, that would definitely be something that they would mess with the sign or the lamps, whatever they had to do so that they were within that. But I think that if it was an off versus, off hours, I don't think that they would desire that, so.
Okay. Well, members of the board, I would entertain a motion or further discussion.
I don't, she doesn't want to talk anymore about that. I
Right.
guess, so.
Yeah. Got that.
Do we need to talk more about the lumens then, or
We
are
can, we absolutely. Well, I'm not sure if I have anything to add on the lumens, but if
I
you
don't. I didn't know Florin did, other than what she said.
Yeah, kind of what I think the closest thing I have, to, I guess, number wise that you compare is that 1 foot candle, which is permitted for an externally lit sign, is 10.76 lumens. And the sign they're proposing is 9 lumens per module, if that's correct. Yeah.
So it's already under the limit.
Yep. So the internally would be, under the sign, under the backlit, or sorry, the 1 foot candle for the backlit sign.
Any further discussion from the board members? Well, I would entertain a motion, or who's ever brave enough to do so. Well,
I'll make a motion. I move that the Board of Adjustment approve the variance from County Zoning Regulations, Section 6.08 E2C, and allow an overhead door in the front yard facing the cul-de-sac street. I move that the Board of Adjustment deny the variance from County Zoning Regulations, Section 6.08 E3B IV, and allow for internally illuminated signs in a light industrial zoning district. The property is legally described as Lot A of Missoula Development Park Phase 3D and zoned to the Missoula Development Park Light Industry. This approval is based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law found in the staff report and the public testimony and is subject to the following conditions. The warehouse and distribution center built must be in substantial compliance with the site plan as submitted. And item 2, all other necessary permits administered by agencies other than Community and Planning Services shall be obtained by Coca-Cola High Country. These permits may include, but are not limited to, building, electrical, mechanical, approach, and sanitation permits.
thanks, Ryan. Did we get everything right? Yep, good. Is there a second?
At second.
Thank you, Maggie. It's been seconded. With that, we'll do a roll call vote.
Jerry Ford,
No.
Paul Forstein,
No.
Ryan Schumacher,
Yes.
Maggie McCall.
Yes.
I believe in a tie, it fails. I might need to double check the bylaws, but I believe that is correct.
We'll double check that. And it's, I guess we'll just wait for that. Nothing else to- No, I don't think we can use one of the alternates to break it. I think we could discuss it a little more. I mean, there are 2 variances here, and I think, I could describe my discussion more, and, and I guess I'd like to hear.
I don't know if they know or not, but if you make the backlighted sign, does that put you over the square footage for the size of the sign? Or do you know?
I don't think that they count the lighted area as part of the sign area. If you were to put that backlight or to put that sign on something else that framed it, then it would. But it will just be on the building. So it would be the same area in both cases.
So the square footage is okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
And Heather, we do have two variances here. I could clarify my decision not to. I was in support of the approval, and I would support the applicant's request for a variance. If the applicant doesn't want that, is not. If it clarifies the record and the applicant would clarify their situation, I could understand and change mine to an approval if that's what the applicant wishes. I'm just in favor of the applicant's request as proposed. So, but I could also, as I'm saying this, I'm thinking, gosh, if we deny the whole request, is that, anti-productive for what the applicant is wanting? And so, I wouldn't want it to fail on the count that I was in favor of what the applicant was proposing. Does that make sense? Complicates the issue. And so I'm sitting here thinking, wow, my support of the project could be counter to their request. Yeah. Yeah. All right. And I know you're reading right there. And it looks like we got Tim from the planning office here today.
Hi, I'm Tim Worley, senior planner with CAPS. Another option is just to split out your motions, I think, because it seems like there's consensus on one and maybe not on the other one. So you can clarify at least the one motion.
All right.
That'd be my recommendation.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Perfect. Well, let's do that. Let's do a roll call vote on each of the two items. And I think at the end of the day, that creates the same result as the app, as everybody supporting it. But anyways, let's do that. Let's have a motion. We have two separate variance requests here. We have a motion. We've seconded the motion for both of those. Let's do a roll call vote on voting for support or denial of each of those variances. Is that clear?
Yeah, so maybe vote first on the off-street loading in the front yard, the doors first, and then,
That sounds great.
yeah.
Yep.
Jerry Ford. Yes. Paul Forstein.
Yes.
Ryan Schumacher.
Yes.
Maggie McCall.
Yes.
With 4 yeses, that variance passes.
All right.
And yeah, second variance request for the internally illuminated sign.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we'll do the roll call vote on the second variance request for the internal. I can start and I'll say no. I'm not in favor of denial. So that's my vote.
So no for Paul Forstein.
Yep.
Ryan Schumacher.
Yes.
Maggie McCall.
Yes.
Jerry Ford.
No.
And I'm really not seeing in the bylaws where it actually clarifies that. I'm wondering if it wasn't included in the previous bylaws, that might be something that we are adding. So as of right now, we will say that the motion does fail, but I'll
Okay.
keep looking a little bit and can clarify it later if
Absolutely.
we
And
need to.
if it needs to be further clarified or discussed further at the next meeting or at a future meeting, then I think the board would clearly
Okay, thank you.
willing to do so. Thank you. So sorry about the confusion. Thank you so much. And that ends the public hearing for the first request. Mark, you're going to mercifully take over the
Okay,
helms on the second request.
no problem. I'll take over for this next hearing. So, moving away from Coca-Cola High Country to the
Actually,
second.
Mark, sorry
Go
to
ahead.
interrupt. I think I did just find where it talks about a tie. So it actually says in the bylaws, Article 6B, number 6, In the event of a tie vote on any matter before the board, the matter will be passed for the decision to a following special or regular meeting of the board.
Okay, so we'll rehear this second portion of that at the next meeting in July.
Yep, there'll be a meeting
So
in July.
we'll revisit that at that time. So, and that would be how I would have interpreted as well, as it's not an approval and it's not a denial either. It did not provide a decision really at this point. So that sounds great. We'll just revisit that next month.
Let me
Jen-
just add, I guess that's probably up to the applicant. The applicant to decide if to add more information and come and
We would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll see you next month.
Okay, sounds wonderful. Thanks, Heather, for finding that too. So we'll move on to the second public hearing for tonight. It is our Ram Edition Townhome Special Exemption. Lauren, if you can give us the staff report, please.
Thanks, Mark. Lauren Miller, planner with Community and Planning Services. This is a request by Jeff Smith of WGM Group, who's representing Nathan Tollefson, to request a special exception from Missoula County zoning regulations to allow for a 15 duplex, 30-unit townhome development located in the Y. Here's a view of the proposed property. The property is legally described as Lot 4 of Ram Edition subdivision and is located east of Highway 93. Access to the property is from Snapdragon and Mastad Court. The property is zoned CC2 General Commercial and is within the Valley West Community Commercial Development District. 2 family dwellings are permitted within this zoning district. The proposed development was reviewed as a condominium and townhome exemption development from Chapter 3 of Missoula County zoning regulations. This type of development is intended to encourage affordable single and 2-unit development without subdivision review and allows for people to own their unit themselves instead of renting them. A special exception is required if there are 10 or more dwelling units that are proposed in zoning areas that allow for multifamily housing. If the special exception is to be approved tonight, the applicant will then apply for the condominium, townhouse, and townhome subdivision exemption under MCA 76-3-203. The development is within the 1976 Y. O'Keefe Plan, which calls for 25 dwelling units per acre on this parcel. This proposal that we're looking at this evening is at a density of 14 units per acre. The plan also calls for higher density uses on either side of the main entrances off of Highway 93. Here's the existing property today. It's approximately 2.37 acres and is vacant, has little vegetation other than grasses, and has little topographical constraints. The adjacent uses to this property are existing residential, commercial, and industrial development. Here's the proposed development site plan. The 15 units are designed around a Woonerf street design. Woonerfs are often described as a shared street design and encourages the residents to use the street as a part of their living space and gives priority to both pedestrians and bicyclists. Landscaping is proposed inside the development using street trees. A visual buffer is also proposed along the eastern edge of the property along the existing residential development. Each resident will be provided with 2 parking spaces, and there will be an additional 11 parking spaces within the interior of the development. The development will be serviced by both public sewer and water. Here's a look at the proposed building design. The units will be 2 stories and a total of 1,150 square feet. Each unit will have its own garage and will be provided with a 25 square foot storage space as required by zoning. The development will conform with the space bulk and setbacks per Chapter 2 general standards in Chapter 3 and the two-family and multifamily standards found in the Missoula County zoning regulations. Once again, with this proposal, adjacent property owners 300 feet of the property and agencies were notified of the proposal. Most comments that were returned were no comments or concerns of the proposal. The proposal was reviewed by the City of Missoula Service Review Committee since the townhomes will be connected to sewer. In order for that sewer connection, the Utilities Service Review Committee requires that the development install curb, gutter, and sidewalks along Snapdragon and Masthead Court adjacent to the property, a storm drainage plan, and the pedestrian circulation on the internal road shall be delineated from the asphalt drive lane with contrasting surface treatment. And these requests were all noted as a condition in the staff report. I did receive a call from an adjacent property owner to the eastern side of the property, and she noted that she did not want to see this high of a density of a residential use adjacent to her property. She also noted that the CC2 Valley West Community Commercial District does permit two-family dwellings on that property. And so the developer would still be allowed to develop at a higher density if the special exception were to be denied. The Montana Army National Guard, who is an adjacent property owner, addressed the concerns with this proposal in the staff report. They were neutral on the proposal. However, they did note that this type of residential use adjacent to the National Guard has prompted complaints in the past due to their training schedule and their occasional 24-hour operations. These concerns were also addressed as a condition in this staff report. And with that, based on the factors that I presented in the staff report, and tonight, staff is recommending approval of the variance. And that concludes my staff report.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. Appreciate that. So at this time, Jeff, do you want to make a presentation for the applicant?
Good evening, Jeff Smith with WGM Group here representing Nate Tollefson for this special exception review. As Lauren mentioned, this project would create 15 townhome units, each containing a duplex. By creating the duplexes as townhome units rather than as a conventional rental project with a single owner, we're creating the opportunity for individual home ownership. Through fee simple unit ownership, townhomes create opportunities for private equity and private wealth creation. The duplex townhomes being proposed with this project are unique in that they create a situation where families can own their own home while supplementing their income and offsetting their mortgage by renting the other half of their duplex. It's important to note as we begin the conversation. As Lauren described earlier, current zoning allows this project to be constructed as proposed as a conventional rental project without special exception review that we're discussing this evening. The special exception review is required in order to create townhome units that allow for fee simple ownership. Without the townhome opportunity, this project would still be built as a single owner rental project. Lauren discussed the growth policy earlier. I'd like to further consider the density goals of the growth policy as they relate to the area surrounding the project. The 1979 Y. O'Keefe Plan calls for residential densities of 25 dwelling units per acre along the Highway 93 corridor in the area of the project. As you move away from the highway, the plan density decreases from the 25 dwelling units per acre to 16 dwelling units per acre. Lot 4 of the RAM addition is located in that transitional area, and as Lauren described earlier, we're proposing 14 dwelling units per acre. So we look specifically at the east side of Highway 93 shown here. The area targeted for high residential density has been built out in large part with non-residential uses. The Armory encompasses more than half of the area shown. Between it and the other commercial development in the area, there are not a lot of opportunities for achieving a density in line with the goals of the growth policy. Yes. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, between the Armory and the other commercial development in the area along the east side of Highway 93 shown in this image, there are not a lot of opportunities to create a residential density that meets the goals of the Y. O'Keefe plan. This is an important project for creating residential density in this area of Missoula County. Lot 4 of the Ram Addition, Zone C2 Commercial in the Valley West Community Development District. The express intent of the Valley West Community District is to provide overall standards which serve to implement the planned community approach to development as stated in the Y. O'Keefe plan. The densities in that plan we just reviewed. Two-family dwellings and multifamily dwellings are allowed within C2 districts within the Valley West Community Plan. Minimal parcel area in this district is 1,000 square feet per dwelling unit. Minimum building site area, based on the modifications of the Valley West Community Development District, is 3,000 square feet per building. Lot 4 of the Ram Addition is 2.15 acres or 90,000 square feet in size. So it's important to consider what would be allowed by right at this site if a conventional rental-only project is constructed instead of the proposed townhomes. Based on Lot 4's area of over 90,000 square feet, and particularly given the availability of public water and sewer at the site, a complex of apartment buildings containing up to 90 units could be constructed without additional review beyond a standard zoning compliance review. There would not be a public process associated with permitting a large rental-only project on the lot. The goal of this project is to provide affordable workforce housing while also creating opportunities for home ownership. This project is located in an area with impervious soils. In contrast to many areas in and around Missoula, stormwater must be detained and stored on-site rather than infiltrated via sumps. So our project utilizes a WUNRF concept, both to create a desirable living environment, while also addressing management of stormwater and infrastructure in an efficient manner. WUNRF is a road concept which incorporates traffic calming design elements to create a shared space for vehicles, bicycles, and pedestrians. This project uses curvilinear road alignments and landscaped roadsides to calm traffic and to create a site that has a distinctly different feel from standard development. It's difficult to make out on this slide, but the curvilinear nature of the road is also accentuated with striping and with the integrated 5-foot wide contrasting concrete strip that wraps through the site. WUNRFs have been shown to reduce traffic speed, increase safety for pedestrians, and accommodate a wider range of activity than standard construction. The design elements associated with WUNRFs also result in a more attractive and visually diverse site than standard construction. By combining vehicles, bicycles, and pedestrians into a shared facility, also the area of impervious development is decreased and stormwater generation is minimized to the extent practical. Stormwater is handled by a network of shallow landscape swales that traverse the site. Landscaping the swales also serves to provide uptake and evapotranspiration of some of the stormwater. Recapping what I've covered here, the townhomes create affordable housing while providing the opportunity for individual ownership and the creation of private equity. The proposed density is in line with the growth policy and less than will be allowed by right if a conventional rental-only project is constructed instead of the townhomes. Without approval of the townhome exemption development, the developer does intend to proceed with construction of this project as a conventional single-owner rental project. Thank you. Look forward to answering any questions.
Thanks, Jeff. Is there any questions for Jeff before he gets away from the mic? Yeah, Andy?
I have one. On your typical street sections, I do not see curb gutter and sidewalk. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is your desire not to have that, correct?
That's the intent of the WUNRF design.
Thanks.
So to follow that question up, there are specific recommendations with regard to certain areas on Snapdragon and Masthead that would have curb and gutter at those locations, right?
Correct. This layout was reviewed with the Urban Services Review Committee.
Okay.
Those were required as a condition of sewer service.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff, what else did the city say? I mean, were they in support of the WUNRF design? Was it something you had talked with them about? And
Yeah, the element that they wanted to see incorporated was a contrasting surface in concrete, so that the grade could be ensured to be within ADA tolerances. So the concept there was create a 5-foot wide integral concrete pathway. It will wrap through the site.
Kind of in the middle, or
It'll be off to one side. We'll orient it so that it avoids the overflow parking areas. So in an area of overflow parking, that pathway would be on the opposite side of the WUNRF.
So on a follow-up to what Mark asked, is there concern about installation of the perimeter of it in curb gutter and sidewalk? Or is that a concern as well, or more about the internal?
The internal.
The internal is
Yes.
the primary concern.
Correct.
So with this concept of a contrasting surface and their desire to have a concrete, that still negates the concern of curb, because they're bringing up curb as well. You're talking about everything on a plane
They're bringing up, I'm sorry.
that is at the same grade, if you will, or not broken up by a curb
Correct.
and a gutter, traditional curb and gutter.
An important consideration with our layout and design here is the treatment of stormwater. So we're not in an area of the Missoula Valley where we can infiltrate our runoff. So curbs on the side of the WUNRF to channelize runoff towards a drainage structure are counterproductive in this case. So we're taking advantage of roadside swales and treating that runoff in a really efficient manner.
Okay, thanks.
Just 1 second, sir. We're just asking the folks here at the table, in 1 second here, we'll open it up for public comment, okay? Sure. Thank you. Anything else for Jeff?
Yeah. Do you happen to know the width of the streets?
Yeah, so we've got a 20-foot wide WUNRF with 4-foot gravel shoulders. Each of the parking areas along the extents of that are 26 feet. Sorry, there's a 26-foot gap between the edge of parking spaces on either side. So the actual driving surface between the parking is 20 feet of asphalt, but there's a space provided that's 26 feet in depth so that vehicles can back out without conflicting with other parked areas.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Andy.
I have one other question. I assume you've reviewed the staff's recommendations of conditions of approval. And if condition 2 were stricken, do you have a concern about being able to connect to sewer?
Yes.
Do you think they can deny you the ability to connect to sewer with condition 2 being stricken?
Connection to sewer is conditional upon curb.
So the
and
sewer that was
sidewalk.
paid for by the property owners and development fees are paid, you think they could withhold sewer without accepting condition 2?
That's a larger city policy. I believe that they can in this case because the way that the contract sewer ordinance is written, they are allowed to enforce urban standards in the rights of way.
But that hasn't been tested yet, I guess.
That's a very good point. I don't intend to test it on this project, but our developer may be interested in that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
Can I ask one question?
Sure, Maggie.
So am I understanding correctly that this is going to be built as proposed either way? And the issue that we are considering in a sense today is whether these will be allowed to be owned or rented?
That is correct. The developer intends to construct either way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So thanks, everyone. So at this time, we're going to open it up for public comment. And so if you have anything that you would like to ask of Jeff and or of the board about this project, or if you have some comments to make, it's your opportunity to do so at this time. If you can come up to the mic, stand up here, and when you do come up, if you can give us your name, maybe make sure that we understand the spelling of your last name at least, so that we can understand what that is and who is speaking, and then go ahead and let us know what you want to talk about.
Can you hear me? My name is Christy Milburn, and I live on Snapdragon, and Milburn is my last name. And I'm concerned about the traffic because everybody that lives up in that development either has to get out by Jim and Mary's or has to get out right there by the Armory. And so there are times, especially when the Armory is in full effect like they were this morning, where it's a long wait And I'm concerned about 30 additional families with each of them having one or two vehicles. That's a lot of traffic in that location right there. So has there been a traffic plan, or has anybody done any research regarding the additional traffic in that area?
So Jeff, is there a traffic plan that was ordered as part of this review? Can you kind of discuss that?
Yeah, so the traffic generation from this project doesn't trigger the requirement for a specific traffic impact study. I would say that the overall community planning in the area and the planned density in the 1979 O'Keefe plan certainly considers a much higher density than is included here. That growth policy and comprehensive plan is used as transportation planning is completed on road networks and services within the area.
So to be clear, it's just that this project did not meet any of the requirements to trigger the additional efforts with regard to the traffic study.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Dean Buffington, 9201 Snapdragon Drive. Just a comment on that traffic deal. I wasn't going to mention that, but that's a good point. That intersection doesn't even get plowed by the state. One of my neighbors here plows it with his 3/4 ton diesel. It's a brute to get out of. And when the traffic, it's not the density and the number of cars there, it's the quality of the intersection. There's no deceleration ramp coming in and turning right. You got to pull over in the shoulder and hope you don't get clipped. It's dangerous. And if it's icy, you got to slow down way early and traffic piles up behind you and people are trying to slow down and doing this. Somebody's going to get killed there. And I'm kind of wondering how many, what number acceptable collateral damage is. But there's going to be some accidents there. And even without this project, the National Guard or people coming home at night, it's dangerous. Now, I want to ask a question of Jeff. Am I to understand that whether this is approved or not, you're going to put something in there anyway, regardless?
The developer intends to construct this project.
So that's
as
kind of interesting
proposed.
to get this approved, right? That'll work. Anyway, people moved up here into our area. Christie is one who was tickled to death to get a home. Single family, residential, neighborhood. We all know each other's kids. We know where dad hangs his hat. They know where the kids park their bikes. I'd like to ask a question. There's potential for 30 to 90 kids to live down here. Where are they going to play? In our neighborhood? They aren't going to play at the National Guard, the machinery lot, or where are they going to play? There's no playground there. They're going to stay in our neighborhood? Give me a break.
Road is not wide enough to handle it. It's a
No.
construction road.
It's a construction road.
Road.
It's not a legal road leaving from there up to our place. It is to, well, actually, you're right. They don't plow it. Even the National Guard, the state does not plow that road or that intersection. Justin, a friend of mine, plows it with his 3/4 ton diesel so we can get out of there. But anyway, getting back to the people moved to this area on the strength of the zoning. Many moved from situations that weren't too great and were tickled to death to get their home, a single-family home. Everybody knows each other's kids. We look out for them. They walk around at night, and it's safe. They have yards to play in. It's a nice neighborhood. That's going to change. 30 to 90 children potential down there. Where are they going to play? And within that neighborhood? Of course not. Kids, they're going to move out of there. We are not going to know the kids, who they are, where they live, or what they're up to. Our neighborhood of limited density is going to go away. That's not fair because we moved there on the strength of the zoning. And now you're going to create a problem for us at the neck. And I know this is profiteering motivated. I know that, but that's not fair to us. We deserve better than that as homeowners. It's a nice neighborhood. And I think, but what Jeff said, it doesn't make any difference to him whether this floats or not. They're going to build something there anyway. And from what I understand, if this doesn't float, what they're going to build there later is going to be worse, all rental. So this is kind of a formality. They're going to do it anyway. I don't like that attitude, but it's typical. I said enough.
Yeah, my name is Kim Duke, D-U-K-E, and I have the same issues with the traffic. My daughter's taking driver's ed this fall, and I talk to a lot of parents there, and we all worry about that and kind of wait 10 or 15 minutes, and if you don't hear the sirens going, we assume they made it out of the intersection okay onto Highway 93. So it's very dangerous. There's more houses going up behind this property at Waldo Williams, like I don't know how many lots are up there, probably, I know originally, I think it was supposed to be about 100 houses. So we've got all that new traffic coming, plus this new development. And the same thing with the kids. I live on Glacier Lily, and there's a park across the street. I pay homeowners dues, and the kids already from the new neighborhood, which is fine, they come over and play, but I'm paying to repair the park and for their use as well as the kids in my subdivision. So something has to be done, especially with the traffic. It's too dangerous there. And the road to the south of this property is it's not even a full width of what the road should be. So, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
So I've got a letter from a neighbor. I don't know if I can read that first.
You could identify yourself, that'd be great.
My name's Chris McGraw, MCGRAW. My neighbors, Don Carroll and Casey Lang, couldn't make it, but what they wrote is, I'm writing to oppose the request to build 15 duplexes on the property legally described as Lot 4 of Ram Edition. All the present homes in this area in the Running W Ranch are single-family homes. In the Running W area, future homes will be built as well as presently as single-family homes. There's no desire or need to build anything besides these types of homes. Doing anything besides this will adversely affect the value of the current and future homes, as well as impact the quality of life of the present and future residents that they enjoy. The other major consideration is access. There's only one road under the development, and that road goes into Highway 93, which is very heavily traveled. Additional traffic runs the risk of potential accidents and traffic delays. I urge you to reject this request. And my thoughts is, like everybody else in this room, the traffic there is crazy. The road is so small that you have to drive your car off of it onto the dirt through potholes to let two cars pass each other. Not to mention, like, I don't know if, Jeff, are you aware of the 4 or 5 houses that are directly east of that, what the square footage is for one family home there?
Square footage per home?
For the lot that contains one home.
Would you tell me?
It's 16,000 square feet each. That lot, I did the calculation, acres to square foot, it's about, 90, 100,000. If you were to put each one of those at 16,000 per home, which is the standard, that's 6. And if you even did it down to 10, which our development up Running W is closer to 10, that puts it at I think it was 9 or 10. And that's all that needs to be there. The traffic is crazy. I mean, it's not going to be 30 families with one car. It's going to be 30 families with 2 cars and a teenager, and they're going to have a car, and then that's 90. It's going to be ridiculous. And it's just a bad idea. And it's kind of lame that they come in and say, oh, hey, we want requests to do this, but then they threaten and say, well, we're going to do it anyway. And maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I think you should reject this and let them do the other one and show us that they're going to do it, I guess. But right now, it's not safe. So.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Going forward here if we can have the comments directed to the board, and we'll transfer and ask Jeff questions, or if he wants to. I'd prefer to have it that way. That's the proper order for this type of a meeting. So if you can direct your questions to the board, and we'll ask Jeff the questions if we feel that there are things that need to be answered. Okay, thank you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Hello, my name is Rich Salois. It's Salois, and I live 9331 Snapdragon. One thing we didn't hear in any kind of this proposal is what these duplexes will be sold for and how they are going to affect the surrounding property values. Right now, a lot of us that live right adjacent to that area have equity in our homes. And when I hear things like low income and affordable housing, I mean, it is what it is, but these could more than likely be people that cannot afford a regular house or be able to afford a home. The decreasing property values, if they were to occur, are not offset by allowing others who can buy one half, rent the other half, when renters don't have home ownership, pride of ownership, or equity into those and can let them come into any kind of disrepair. And according to their proposal, they can lease it for any reason, and if they violate any of the rules, they can be warned according to their rules before they have to take action. And should this be denied, and it should be, just because of negative effects on the community already, and they plan to go through, I am confused on whether or not they're going to build one for home ownership only or for renters only. And renters only would certainly decrease our value because, again, they don't have pride and ownership like we do in that area. And we would have a very mobile community going in and out of there, bringing in who knows what kind of people. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Brett Haybeck, and I saw the original plat for the Running W development that's way back in there. And that section of Snapdragon that they're talking about that's real narrow and curvy isn't even supposed to be there. The original entrance to that Running W is supposed to be Cartage Road, which is up on top of the hill by the truck stops. And then the road that goes up past the armory is supposed to be pushed back in there too. So that would be another original entrance and exit out of that Running W. That's why there's such high traffic on Snapdragon. It's the only way in and out of there. So I don't know if we can kick the Dennis Williams in the butt to get the rest of his development finished or not, but that would really alleviate a lot of traffic problems on Snapdragon. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Phil Gaskill. I'm 9700 Elderberry Court. And I have a few questions about the public water, first off, and public sewer. So is that coming from the city?
Yes, it is coming from the city.
And where is that located right now? Is the armory tapped into that?
I can't speak to that. Jeff, do you know if the armory? I believe it is, but
Yes, sir. So public sewer is provided by the city of Missoula. Water is provided by the Y Area Water System, which is a privately owned public water system.
So that's approved already? That's been approved by the county?
Yes.
Has to have enough
The
water?
the water
for that
system.
building?
The water system is approved. Sorry.
How, can you explain to me kind of how they go through that process of, I mean, half of our homeowners in our association barely have water? So I don't know.
I can't really speak to that process,
All right.
but there is a process for any project like this to be approved through the city to be connecting onto these services.
I mean, we had to put in a tank that's on the hill. I don't know if you guys have ever drove 93, and there's a large tank up on the hill. So 5 years ago, I didn't live there at the time, but they were going to connect to the sewer, and there wasn't enough water. So they had to build a tank, and so all the homeowners that right now are paying for that tank because they built it because there's not enough water. So I don't know how that was possible. Anyway, I'll move past that. Along the roads of Snapdragon and Masta, is there going to be a stop sign put in there for those homeowners to come out and enter Snapdragon Lane?
I don't remember what the drawings showed on that.
Yeah, yes, there is. Yep.
Okay.
So there will be a stop sign at most, so for them
Yep, for
entering
the-
Snapdragon there?
That's correct.
Okay. And I didn't see, another question I didn't have, where are the storage units located on that picture? All I saw were townhomes and 2 spots for parking.
So Jeff, can you give us an answer on the storage?
Yes, sir. The zoning ordinance requires a 25 square foot zoning area storage area within each unit. So the 25 square foot area is within the unit itself.
Inside
It's
the
not a
unit.
separate storage unit.
And then also, I don't know if, we probably can't get anything, but the same concerns about that Snapdragon and how wide that road is there, if it's supposed to be there or not. Just to second that one on that for saying there. And then the drainage problem that you said you're taking care of, and you're taking care of everything, but that same part on that Snapdragon side, there is no sidewalk or curb at that point. It's just dirt road. So do they have to, are they allowed, that they need to take care of the south side of that building, the runoff? Because I understand they're getting all the runoff inside the area, and they got that all proposed, but what's happening to the outside? If they're not going to put a curb and a street on that Snapdragon Lane, where's all that runoff going?
I will beg for forgiveness if I'm wrong here, but I believe out on the street side, there is a requirement for curb on Snapdragon that has to be
There will
on
be
the
a
adjoining
curb,
street
so they
there.
will put a curb in
There's
now.
just not curb within the site.
Okay.
Because of the design that they're
Gotcha.
using at this
Okay,
time.
so on the outsides, there will be curb, and okay.
That's
I didn't
correct.
understand that properly. Okay. And I think that's it. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Wendell Peterson. I live on Paintbrush Lane in the Spring Meadow subdivision. And just a question through the chair about the Y area water. Is that the system that already feeds the Running W's subdivision? Or is that separate?
I can't speak to that. I would have to rely on some other folks here. And Jeff, do you know specifically what the situation is there?
Yes, that is the system that serves the Running W Ranch subdivision.
Okay, that is something. I'm president of the Spring Meadows County Water District, and we're having problems with one of our wells that is being affected. We have senior water rights, and we're being affected by the Y water system. So keep that in mind. We will be addressing that later as a subdivision. But any more that you add on to that system, the Y area was only developed to feed the Running W subdivision. It wasn't set up for anything else. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, I'm Michelle Cahall, and I live at 9332 Snapdragon, and I'm the first house on the left. And I'm just curious what is going to be done for privacy for those of us that are going to be backed up against these townhouses.
There is some privacy items that were agreed to in this project. So Jeff, you can probably speak to them more directly than I can. So go ahead.
The zoning ordinance requires a buffer between single-family residential and this project. There'll be either a combination of fences and plantings or one or the other, but a visual
Much of a
buffer.
buffer. There's not a lot of room there.
Yeah, I believe there's 20 feet on that side between the nearest building and the property line.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Carla Keeland, 9670 Honeysuckle. I just wanted to share some of the same concerns. My subdivision pays for the park that most of the other subdivisions use without having to pay for that. So I didn't see any plan for, public space for the residents in that area. I am also concerned about the traffic, not that I'm sure that affects his zoning, but my question is, I really wanted to clarify exactly what is the plan if this is not approved to be placed there? So what is the intention if this does not go through? Are they planning on putting in an apartment building with even more potential spaces?
Yeah, and I believe when Jeff gave his presentation, he said that the owner intends on building this project for rent rather than for purchase.
Okay.
The other thing that I felt was important was the information that Jeff provided, saying that, hey, if this project wasn't being built with the exemption, that they could put in, what did you say, an 80 unit apartment house in there?
Based on the square footage of the lot and the required area per unit, as over 90,000 square feet would allow a 90-unit apartment
So
building.
they could do a multifamily unit there that would have probably a larger impact than what is proposed, I think was what his point was there.
Would that have to go through any planning or public comment on that structure as well? Or would that just be something that's already written in the code to allow it to be built?
Yeah, it's my understanding it would be allowed. I mean, they would have to submit a site plan to the county and that would be permitted, but it wouldn't be a process like this where we're kind of talking about it and considering different options. And I don't take it as a threat. Jeff's just pointing out what the zoning permits, and we're in a commercial area here, and so there's a lot of different uses that could be allowed. And to do residential, this process was triggered by this type of application. And so that's what we're here for today. Yeah.
Okay. And then I just want to kind of share, I think a lot of the homeowners in my area maybe do have some concerns about traffic and safety, just as it is without the subdivision. Would this be a forum where we could come and bring those concerns for the county to maybe do something about the speed limit and the road conditions and the snow plowing? Or how would we go about getting that fixed?
So this board can only hear this application. So our job is to review, in this case, this exemption application and approve or deny it. While we all wish we could help with other things, our board is only allowed to make those determinations. So if there is traffic, if there is roadway design and or width or speed or issues out on the highway, unfortunately, we have really no ability to impact those. And those kind of discussions really should be brought to the county commissioners. And they have a way more ability to answer those things and to provide some relief or a plan on how to deal with those. This board, unfortunately, only can hear the applications that, for the things that come before us and make decisions on those only. So I'm sorry, we can't help you more with that.
And let me add just a little bit. We do have an open public comment period, and you can say what you could have came here at the beginning of the meeting and said whatever, and we certainly wouldn't have stopped you from it. But my recommendation would be go to the planning office, talk with them. And there is an ongoing. It's really kind of timely that you're saying that because the county is updating their growth policy right now. And so when we look at this project here, we've got a growth policy that recommends 25 units per acre. Jeff is proposing something, I think, almost half or less dense, I guess you'd say, half the density of what's been recommended. That's pretty unusual. Usually you see it kind of the opposite way where folks are. And so anywho, that growth policy discussion is something that your neighbors should get involved in and kind of participate, at least, if nothing else, for your area. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for your time.
Last name Thompson, 9233 Snapdragon. My question is, have you guys addressed with the school districts of the growth in that area versus bus schedules, extra kids as another concern with the narrowness of the road and the buses coming through and traffic coming out? Another traffic, I guess, beating a dead horse. But when we moved out there, that was considered a rural development area. What are these townhomes or apartments going to do as far as the rural development in that area? As far as people who are buying and selling homes in that area, is that going to go away as far as buying and selling a real development? Because they do have RDs loans in that area where a person can qualify for a real development loan for a house. I guess if we had to have them in there and we had to have townhomes in there, I would prefer somebody to purchase the home. They take more, take better care of the dwelling as an owner versus a renter. They don't care if their car's broke down and a flat tire, or they'll park their camper on Snapdragon out behind there because their camper can't be inside. Is there going to be, rules and regulations for this townhome development as far as what they can have in the dwelling? Junk vehicles, we can't have, more than 2 recreational vehicles parked outside our house, as far as Williams, dwelling in there, or non-registered vehicles, or that type of thing. Is there going to be any rules or regs inside this townhome that they have to abide by?
So the listing of the covenants for this, Jeff, or
Yes, correct, covenants. Yeah.
okay, can you go ahead and speak to that?
Yeah, so there is a townhome declaration that includes restrictive covenants And there are certainly provisions for parking of surplus vehicles within the townhome area.
Okay. All righty. Thank you. That's all I need to know.
Thank you. Any additional comment?
My name's Rory Zarling. I live on Paintbrush Lane. I believe I'm one of the first residents to live in that whole area out there. I've been there since 1997, along with Wendell. It was the first subdivision built in that area. And I've got quite a few comments and also some questions. I wanted to start with the questions first because that'll help me with some of my comments, actually. I've never heard of until tonight this WUNRF concept. Could somebody explain that better to me so I understand it better? And also, is it in Missoula County elsewhere?
So Jeff, I think you're going to have to explain your design a little bit better as far as what the concept is.
Yeah, so let me pull the PowerPoint back up. So WUNRF is a concept of a shared access space. So trying to create an area that's pedestrian friendly, can be used for more activities than just vehicles. So by creating traffic calming elements in our design, which is a very curvilinear street and near to the street landscaping, we create an environment that feels different than a normal street. This isn't a new concept. It's been built all over the country and all over the world. It's a Dutch concept. And the idea is to create a more open space that encourages multi activities and social interactions. It's been shown to reduce vehicle speeds, increase pedestrian safety. It's efficient use of infrastructure. Does that answer your question?
I understand it better now. So my second question is, are we the guinea pigs, or is this concept elsewhere in the county?
Well, I'm not aware of anywhere else in the county. I know there's some locations in the city. I don't know the names of them. Jeff, are you familiar with anything in the county that we could reference?
No, I think there are several examples in the city, but I'm not aware of any in the county. And I guess as far as you being the guinea pigs, this is the infrastructure that serves this project alone, and it's not intended as public infrastructure to serve anyone but the residents here. It's in a limited common element that will be controlled by the townhome association.
But if it serves them better, it might serve us worse, is my point. Anyways, so I understand what the concept is. Then another question, I guess, for county zoning in general is, I don't understand the difference or why the county would be concerned whether residences are rented out or not. If they're for private dwellings, homeowners have to own them and live in them, or they can rent them out. Can somebody explain why the county would have something zoned as to whether or not somebody can rent it or not?
Lauren, can you give us a clarification on that, just on that aspect of it? Sorry.
Yeah, so the CTED, which is that townhome exemption, that has to be done on properties that have previously been subdivided. And as discussed in my presentation, the goal for these townhomes is for single ownership, to allow people to own their homes instead of renting them. The goal is to make them more affordable and allow people to actually own those units instead of renting out of a big apartment complex.
Okay. And then the density thing, could somebody explain that? I've heard it a couple of times. I didn't write it down, my own fault probably, but could you explain what could be built out there again as far as density per acre?
Once again, Jeff, I think you covered that in your presentation, but I'll let you go ahead and talk about that again.
Yes, sir. So the density is governed by zoning in this case. And zoning in this particular district, which is CC2 General Commercial, requires 1,000 square feet of parcel area per dwelling unit. So if you were to imagine the full density allowed by zoning. You'd take the net area of the lot, subtracting, in this case, subtracting the road, and divide that by 1,000, and that would result in an allowable density of 90 units. That would 2.15 acres, so 90 units. That would be about 45 units per acre, is probably closer to 40 units per acre. That would be above the density recommended in the growth policy of 25 units per acre, but would be allowable per zoning without a special exception review or without a public process. What we're proposing is 14 units per acre.
So to re-clarify it myself, so I understand it better, on that parcel that they're looking at developing, the maximum units that could be built on there, not that they're going to build, but the maximum somebody could build on there would be how many?
Up to 90 based on the parcel area requirement per zoning, 1,000 square feet per dwelling unit.
Yeah, so I guess my comment, so I understand that now, just like I understand the WUNRF and the renting issue. But what I don't understand is that seems so excessive that they have that many units built on such a small piece of parcel of land, which we all can visualize how big that is. If we visualize what zoning would allow of 90 units on there, that seems absurd, that we'd allow that kind of a building out in a rural setting. That's why we all live out there. If we wanted to live in an urban setting, we would have lived in town. So I guess my question is, at what limit would zoning consider excessive? If 90 units on that area out there wouldn't be excessive, I don't understand the purpose of zoning when it comes to setting those limits in.
So Paul, would you kind of like to talk about that again? It's about the plans that are in force at this time, right?
Yeah, I can add a little information to it. This area is zoned. This is a unique area. You guys got a unique area, and we've got a rural feel in your subdivision, and we've got it's got this. The characteristics are very unique for rural areas. It's got water, sewer available to it. It's got the Y transportation network there. It's got commercial zoning. The growth policy clearly looked at this area and thought of growth. And like I said earlier, it's rare that you see these plans from the 70s projecting at 25 units per acre. That's a pretty high density recommendation. And then with the zoning that was put in place on top of it, that would permit up to 90 units. Again, that's, there's clearly the plans have this area designated for growth. That's, I guess, the way I understand it.
That's fine. I've got another question.
Okay, so that answers my questions for the most part. So my comments is, after hearing, I kind of wanted everybody else to talk tonight first, to hear what some of the more recent people would have to say, and then I would piece things together and come up with my thoughts at the end. But I've always thought it was strange that on Snapdragon that the road is built so sketchy, so crooked, wider, narrower, drop-offs, no curb and gutter. It's almost like somebody started a foot trail there and it morphed into somebody putting a little asphalt down, but so I'm interested in the comments that somebody else brought up tonight is it even a legitimate spot for a road? Whoever put it there, I'm not sure when it happened, but should it be there? And if it shouldn't be there legally, if it was called for in a different plan to come in from a different route up off of Sparkler Lane or some of that Meralt's area, then that's a concern I have. I know when we were, like I said, we've been out there a long time, one of the first residents. So when the water started failing, we were all really concerned. And then we basically agreed to putting in, I can't remember the dollar amount, Wendell might know, it's $2 or $3 million water tank that a lot of us had to go through a lot of different meetings, and it costs us more out of our checkbook every month for that. I think it's something we're trying to pay off over 20 years, and we got a partial grant to help pay it. And it's like anything, you don't have time to follow everything up exactly to the nth degree to understand it all. I thought it was for our subdivision. Tonight I'm hearing it's for the Running W subdivision, which I guess I'm okay with that too. but at some point it has to become a limit where it's not okay. Right now, we can only water our grass every other day, and even when you do that, it's marginal. Quite often you turn on a shower or a kitchen sink and the water barely comes out. So it's undeniable. The more houses and more units and more demand you put on our water system, we're going to have to dig it deeper or make a $10 million tank out of it instead of a $2 million tank, and that's going to affect me and others. The commons area, I think our subdivision, the Spring Meadows, is the only commons area. It was built at our expense. We paid for it. Kind of like the water issue. I'm okay with it to a degree with other people using it, but there is no place for kids to play out there at all except our commons. And I don't see the people from this subdivision, if they have whatever 20, 30, 40 children potentially, that they're not going to play in the streets there. People aren't going to like that, so they'll end up at our commons too, and we're not being compensated for that. The traffic is maxed out on both Lady Slipper, which is by Jim and Mary's, and the Snapdragon. There are no sidewalks in our subdivision. At the time, we didn't really need it. It was all fields around there. The commons was adequate for the few children that lived in the area. But now I pay attention in our subdivision almost more than anywhere else in Missoula when I drive, because there's so many corners and streets and new subdivisions, and they're laid out funky. A lot of kids in the area, a lot of new, younger families. So adding more children to the streets without thinking through all these topics is not a good idea. It's like any other meeting too. I know how it is. It's like voting or whatever. I'm sure of all the people that live in Running W and our subdivision and other areas, there's only a small fraction of people here tonight. And I think that can be extrapolated as to how many people are actually to be against the overall concept. All that being said, I still hear what they're saying as far as they're going to go ahead and build something anyways. Building something is one thing. Building what's really well thought out and agreed on by most everybody, at least under more thought out conditions and given more time. It's like anything, probably a happy compromise could be reached, but to plunk what we're calling a heavy density build out in that area is not sitting well with most, if not all of us here tonight, and a lot of others of us that are not here tonight. I don't have all the answers either, by any means, but there's a lot of things that are really concerning, that the playgrounds, the streets, the lack of sidewalks, the lack of water, the traffic, etc. So to just quickly to approve what they're asking for, I would be against that. Thank you.
Do you have a homeowners association?
Excuse me?
Do you have a homeowners association?
We do.
You know, in this report, there's a lot of your questions answered. And I'll be happy to give you my report, and you can make copies of it or have the answers to a lot of this. The leases are in here, gives the provisions of them. It's pretty well covers everything, I think. That's all right, isn't it, Tim? You give this away? Yeah.
Yeah, Jerry's got a copy of our application. It's available at the county planning office.
And I'll give you mine.
And within it includes the draft set of covenants and declaration documents. And so I think, Jerry, you're saying similar to what you have. And so some of what you might be asking about it would be in those documents available at the county. So.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Steve Davis. I live at 9563 Lady Slipper. So this development affects me pretty directly. It's in my backyard. He's proposing townhouses and owner
it sounds like a way for the developer to cut costs with the owners, and also with the townhouses. There's not a townhouse out there. They're in Missoula or Missoula County. So why is he bringing his townhouses out to Missoula County? I don't understand. It doesn't fit the project. There's other issues. They've all been addressed here. I'm very concerned about what effect it'll have on our water system. I mean, I don't have the answer for it. But I think it's something that needs to be talked about, addressed. And I'm not opposed to development. I mean, that's where Missoula is headed. I'm for a project that fits our neighborhood. I don't feel this project fits our neighborhood. I don't like the townhouse idea. If he wants to put other units similar to what's out there, I'm not opposed to that at all. And last, I don't take threats very well. So tell Mr. Tollefson, don't tell us, show us. And I'm sure we'll be here in full force to fight him on that one also. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment?
My name is Trisha Wilkerson. We just moved into Honeysuckle Lane about 2 years ago. Given that everybody is talking about the water, the traffic, the common areas for kids, I have 2 small kids. So that really concerns me, having all of these other people in the area, the high traffic volumes. My kids play out in the street. They're 3 and 5. There's nowhere else for them to go if they're not in the backyard. Adding in more vehicle traffic makes that a much more dangerous situation for them. The water situation, same thing. Everybody else is concerned about what happens to our water. So I'd like to know what the recourse is for if or when these townhomes or this outrageous apartment complex gets put in, what happens when our water fails? Do we wait until we are having to go to Costco and buy the water that we need to drink and to bathe and to cook before that gets fixed? Or does something happen before that? What actions are we taking to ensure that we're not going to just run out of water while they're building, or once they bring in, 90 units, 30 units, whatever the case may end up being? What recourse do we have as a community to make sure that we are taken care of?
While I would like to tell you I have an answer for that, I don't have one right now.
So I think that
The
needs to be
process-
part of
The process for
this.
this project to go forward would include a review by the folks that manage and run the water system. And they would have to put their stamp of approval on it to allow that project to go forward. I do hear a lot of the comments regarding the concerns about the water system, and I was not aware. Obviously, you folks live there every day and are firsthand seeing it. So I think that'll be, we're giving the public some time to comment here, and a lot of us up here are taking notes, and we will have some follow-up questions for the developer so that we can kind of find out what is going on with some of these things. But we're wanting right now to just give the public the chance to ask the questions that they have so that we can try and get some clarification on those.
Okay. I also would just like to add the comment that we lived in town for a very short period of time. We came from Great Falls. We lived in the middle of town there. And the reason that we chose to move where we chose to move out by the Y was to get away from town, to get away from living on top of our neighbors. I grew up in Chicago, so I literally grew up on top of my neighbors. We moved away from that to stay away from that. And adding in townhomes here is going to be just like being back home. We don't want that. That's not why we live out there. We moved out there to get away from that. And I think all of my neighbors would agree. We don't want townhomes because we don't want the density of people, of vehicles, of any of that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any additional public comment?
I just had one additional thing about, so the zoning right now, commercial.
Sir, please state your name again for the record.
Phil
Thank you.
Gaskill. And the zoning for commercial, so that counts, townhomes are commercial then, since they're, I don't understand that part of it.
Well, Paul can probably explain it better than I can, but this property is zoned commercial, but there are allowances for it to be used for other uses, but you have to get permission. And this is one of those things. That's what this hearing is about, is a special exception to that is allowed in the code for zoning for the change of use to be used for residential, and then the townhome exemption is one way you can do that.
Okay. And then one other question, I don't know if you guys will be able to answer it, but with the water process, who would we be able to talk to? So say this doesn't go through and they try to propose their 90 homes and like that much more water, that much more sewer. Who do we go talk to about, like who approves that, or who do we talk to about that to get more information on that kind of thing?
So the best people to talk to would be the gosh, I can't remember the name. I'm drawing a blank here.
I don't know who the review authority is for that. Jeff, I was going to ask you this, and we're moving towards that part where we ask questions of the applicant, but can you add a little depth to the review authority for the water? Is that the city of Missoula? Are they actually in charge of that segment of water?
The water in this area is not controlled by the city of Missoula. The review is actually the responsibility of the Public Services Commission. The Y area water system is governed by the regulations of the state through the Public Services Commission. If I could add one thing at this point, there are two water systems out there. The water system that we're connecting to is located, if you're familiar with the area, of course you are, up by what used to be Triple W equipment and is now RDO controls.
Mm-hmm.
I think the water system that a lot of you folks have talked about tonight is specific to the Spring Meadows area. Am I correct in that?
Yep.
And do you have anything to add, Jeff, on how do you get a hold of somebody at the Public Services Commission? I mean, maybe how you reached out to them, or
I don't have any specific contact information for them, but certainly available online.
Okay,
That's right. And the PSC is a state organization, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
Andy.
Jeff, could I ask, I think the townhome exemption, unless we'll have to go through the DEQ, will it not?
Correct.
So the real regulatory agency that will address all of these concerns about deliverability and serviceability is going to come through the DEQ if they have to go through the Department of Environmental Quality. So unless they're getting an exemption from that, and I don't think townhomes in general are exempt. I wasn't sure, but if you do go through it, the DEQ will have a strong hand in review of the water system.
Was there a question there?
Do you concur?
Yes. The
PSC is more about regulation and rates and, some of those things, and they're less about capacity, I think. The DEQ is going to be more your agency on capacity and serviceability issues, I think.
As far as the water main extension
Yes.
for the project.
But I do concur. I think some of this could be confusion in two different water systems, because I've heard kind of maybe, and I'm not certain who's on who there, but I think there could be some confusion in that.
I believe that there is.
Again, my name is Rory Zerling, and I just had a couple more follow-up afterthoughts. I'm not 100% positive that the water, you're just referring to the two different water systems. I'm not even sure if there are two different water systems, to tell you the honest truth. I know that we have one, and it's up on the hill. And we can look into that more ourselves also. So I guess because I don't know the answer, and when I heard Wendell talk about senior water rights, I'm not sure if the water rights are to what, to a system, to that part of the county, to the aquifer or whatever, but obviously regardless of which water system or systems that it's on, it's all more water being used from that area. So so that's one comment. I'm not sure. Seeing how Jeff brought it up, it's a valid point. It's very concerning if it's on our system, if we're all in the one system, but if there's another system, and I guess seeing how you alluded to it, where would that other system be so that I could check it out again? Does anybody?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's my understanding, you'd look at the, well, I would reach out to the county. That would be my personal advice, because County Public Works, county, the planning office, those are areas where they probably could get you linked up with it. But what he said, they're regulated by the Public Service Commission. I believe that's right. And they're a Montana state entity, so they could probably also get you right on kind of the people who oversee that your systems out there. I'm sure there's a bunch of information on it, and the DEQ will be taking a look at it and confirming that, we're certainly, that's not our focus necessarily, but it's very important information, and I think it'll be thoroughly vetted, especially if the DEQ has anything to do with it.
Then my last comment is, as I leave tonight, I'd like the message to go back to the developer, whatever, that I understand American business and American dream and making money and everything like that too. We're all in that same boat. But my point is, I'd like the developer to know that at least I'll speak for myself. I'm not opposed to him developing something out there. I don't know how big the acreage is, but if you could just keep it in line, reasonably in line with how the neighborhood looks already, that's what I think most of are asking for, whether that's building 8 houses or 10 houses or whatever. I don't know what the number is, but just something reasonable that blends in totally, as opposed to being a 2-story townhouse with all these other topics being not thoroughly researched. The message is, I'm in favor of development if that's what he wants to do. Hope he makes a great profit, but just don't do it at our expense without our consideration.
Thank you. So if there's no more questions, we'll close the public comment period. And I do know that I have several questions for Jeff, and as I assume others may have. So at this time, we'll close the public comment period. And Jeff, I think we would kind of open up some stuff for discussion and any other questions for Jeff at this point regarding this proposal. So I'll start from the beginning. We talked about the traffic situation and that this project was not large enough to trigger the traffic study or other requirements on that. The Highway 93 traffic would have been a part of that, and those turning motions would have been part of that if it was triggered. Can you tell me how close we were to the triggering effect of a traffic study on this project?
I don't know if Lauren can help me with that threshold. I cannot tell you how close we are to triggering a traffic study without some further research.
Okay. The next thing I had was with regard mainly to this water. We're hearing continued comments and concerns about this water system capacity and that they don't have water pressure and or volume. Can you shed some light on what system we're connecting to and what that approval process requires in order for the connection to take place to make sure that there's adequate water for not only the system, but also for this additional load that will be brought online onto that system?
Certainly. So the review of the water will be provided this project via service lines connected to a new main extension. So that main extension will be reviewed by the Department of Environmental Quality. Part of that review requires a certification from the entity that operates the system that there's adequate capacity. I think part of the confusion here tonight is, as we discussed, there are 2 water systems out there. I'm fairly confident of that, and I'm not certain which of any of you are connected to the Y area water system that's near RDO controls, but I think that might be part of the confusion. So for our main extension and our service connections, we will need a review from DEQ, and that capacity is part of that review.
And where are you at in that process of that approval through DEQ at this time?
So we don't have the final approval yet, but we've started the review process.
Okay, thank you. The next question was regarding what we're hearing is another concern is play areas. Can you discuss, again, I'm assuming that this project didn't trigger because of the capacity, additional space that would be required under the zoning regulations for either playgrounds or other things to be built?
Right, so a couple elements on the project. There are outdoor porches on each of the buildings that provide some outdoor space. The street's designed as a multi-purpose area, and then each unit, the townhome unit, of course, includes the building itself, and then some exterior areas. So there are exterior landscaped areas that are available to each unit as well. There are also some larger limited common areas on the south side of the project where there's some open space where people could potentially use that area.
Okay, thank you.
There's swales in that area as well, but there's outdoor space there.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff, do you know where the kids will go to school at? There was a question regarding the school district, and is it
Yeah, I believe it's Dismet here
Dismet?
for elementary.
Frenchtown
for both.
There's 3 buses.
So the school district was included as an agency in the review for this. Is that correct, Lauren?
Sorry, no comments received. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Any other questions for Jeff? Comments?
I had one. When I initially started having that conversation about the curb gutter and sidewalk, I think we failed to communicate, I think, but the conditions of approval and the requirements of the city for connection to sewer appears to be just curb gutter and sidewalk on the 2 exterior streets, which I'm not sure what's on Mastad right now.
Partial sidewalk.
Intermittent.
And
Snapdragon appears to be somewhat of a intermittent connection that's probably tied to some phases of running W that may get pushed through or something, that whenever
likely.
a certain number of phases are required, it's counted platted road right now, looks like, and so it's probably underserved, but probably eventually it gets connected through. So the installation of curb gutter and sidewalk on that, particularly the curb, is a little odd, probably, but it doesn't look like there's a requirement to construct a street. But you guys were okay with that element.
Wasn't a negotiable element with the city during their service review committee.
And I guess where I'm going with this concept is a lot of the concerns we've heard about, I'm trying to understand if the conditions of this recommendation are palatable to go forward with for that development.
So I would add that the condition number 2 that requires the curb gutter and sidewalk on Snapdragon Drive, it isn't necessary that that's a condition of this approval for the project to go forward. The city will still require that as a condition of connection to sewer, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, there are certainly problems with that, with creating that improvement in.
Yeah, that
It's design that needs to be addressed, and it's not an easy.
As far as your application to go forward with this project, that has a lighter touch on the land than what could happen. We don't know if that would happen or not. That's speculation. Whether that gets worse or more dense or not, we don't know. But these conditions on here, you and your client are comfortable with those conditions as posed.
Yes.
The 4 conditions.
Yes.
The one clarification I thought earlier you talked about, because on your road section, it just shows asphalt and gravel. And there's no condition that specifically says that. It just says there's no condition that addresses what that walkway is. In the comments from the city, there's a discussion, and there was lengthy discussion in that committee meeting, I think, with regards to a delineation of a surface treatment. And that's not a condition of approval. So, and it doesn't appear the city has leveraged how you condition that or not to their approval. So I guess my question is, are you intending to put concrete in there? Or are you going to stripe the road or paint it or do nothing?
The city's conversation during the sewer service review committee was a concrete walkway.
But that's not a requirement. It doesn't appear in these conditions of approval.
That's not a requirement of these conditions of approval for this special exception, but it certainly is of the sewer service connection.
But that's a discussion for another day with another entity, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. I'll make a motion. I move that the Board of Adjustment approve the special exception request to allow for 15 duplexes, 30 dwelling units, townhome development. And the property is legally described as Lot 4 of Ram Addition and Zone CC2, General Commercial Valley West Community Development District. This approval is based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law found in the staff report, public testimony here tonight, and is subject to the following conditions. Can somebody read the conditions for me, please?
Jerry, I could pick up if you'd like. I'll try to. Condition number 1 was all other necessary permits administered by the agencies other than Community and Planning Services shall be obtained by the property owner or designated representative. These permits may include, but are not limited to, building, electrical, mechanical, approach, and sanitation permits. Condition 2, recommended condition 2 is, the owner shall provide verification from the City of Missoula Development Services prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy that conditions from the City of Missoula Utility Services Review Committee has been met, including but not limited to storm drainage and installation of curbs, gutters, and sidewalks along Mastad Court and Snapdragon frontages of the development. Condition 3, site design, including storm drainage and installation of curbs, gutters, and sidewalks, shall be reviewed and approved by County Public Works prior to certificate of occupancy. And condition 4, the developer shall include a section within the townhome declaration notifying all future tenants and unit owners that the Montana Army National Guard operates at 9407 Running W Road and 9883 Running W Road, where soldiers routinely perform activities such as maintenance, training, and physical fitness at odd hours and occasionally 24-hour operations. Motor pools may create considerable noise and light when used, and increased traffic shall be expected on drill weekend.
I'll second the motion.
Okay,
but
so
I would like to discuss.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second, so is there any other discussion on this motion at this time?
Well, I guess I'll add that housing's a tough conversation to have. It's and when we have things like traffic and water and particularly traffic seems to come up a lot with houses, and it's clear that all of our transportation networks aren't kind of hitting the mark, because it comes up a lot when we have houses proposed, and not just from this board, but I listen to the other boards in the city and the county, and whenever houses are up, that's how traffic is highlighted a lot. So I think we can all should expect that our community and our county and our public works and that those folks can I guess rise to the occasion, so to speak. And if you have an area that is having traffic problems, that there should be outlets for that. This seems to be the venue when a new housing project, development, subdivision, when that's proposed, it seems like a lot of folks get frustrated, and this is the time where they discuss things like an inadequate network of roads, and unfortunately, it doesn't always match the request. It would be outside of the review, in my opinion, for us to require additional roads and improvements to off-site roads for this use. And I don't think it would be required of the apartment if it was approved. And it's just part of a larger discussion that is very difficult. And it's something I think if folks here are passionate about it, they should be able to expect, and I think they would get results from working with the agencies in charge of that transportation. It gets really difficult when sitting here and reviewing applications in this case, and trying to come up with a solution for it. But it is a common theme, and it's something I expect to be hearing more and more and more of as we look at growth here in Missoula. So.
Thanks, Paul. I'll add to that traffic is something that's unfortunate. We see this on a lot of projects that are being proposed south of Missoula as well, with the Bitterroot traffic that's coming in. I know you guys have a lot of transient traffic that comes through on Highway 93 from up north. I've spent a couple, 3 occasions in the last few days out there at different times of the day to see how that is, and I understand your dilemma with regard to trying to get out onto 93 or making a turning motion to the south, and the traffic's bearing down on you at 70 miles an hour. So I understand, how difficult that is. I would imagine it's very difficult for school bus traffic coming in and out of there. So I get it. This board cannot. We don't have the ability to really address that. It needs to come via the county and or the highway department to try and get some improvements made. Unfortunately, it does seem like there has to be an accident or something for it to be taken serious enough to make a change. So I understand that, but we don't have the authority to do anything about the alignment of 93 or turn lanes or anything on that on the highway. So we do that. We do understand where you're coming from. The water system, like we said previously, we do have to rely on our governmental agencies that do have the responsibility to review a program like this for the water system, that they will not allow the water main extension if there's not adequate supply. That is one of the duties that they have, and as part of their review, to make sure that water system can be utilized in a manner that is meeting with all of the requirements for the building code. And so again, we have to rely on those folks for those reviews and approvals. But I heard some of you say this today, but I also agree with some of the statements that were made today regarding if there's going to be something that's going to be built on this parcel. I really believe that if there's owners that occupy those units, it's a way better situation than a rental. I've lived in those situations before as well, and really feel that having home ownership is an important thing. I heard from some of you folks today that you said that was the reason you moved where you were, so you had the ability to own your own home, your single family dwelling, and I completely understand that. That's kind of the American dream. That's what we all want for our families. With the fact that this may give some people on the lower income level the ability to own their own home, I see that there's some benefit to the community, and that it might be a good thing. If this project's going to get built either way, if that has that opportunity, then I see some benefit for it at that point. So I'll turn it over to whoever else has anything else to say about this matter. Jerry, you have anything?
Did you get second?
Yes, it did get, we have a motion and a second, and now we're just letting everyone talk about if they have any other comments. Okay.
Well, I think you have to go over these conditions you have to go over these conditions that are added to this. So that's taking care of a lot of things that these people are talking about.
All right. No other comments? Okay, have a roll call vote, please.
Andy Medford,
Yes.
Jerry Ford,
Yes.
Paul Forstein,
Yes.
Ryan Schumacher,
Yes.
Mark Kobos.
Yes.
Passes.
So the special exemption for RAM addition is approved. So I see here for old business, we have the BOA bylaw amendments, and we're going to postpone that till next month.
Correct. So those will be on the July 17th meeting.
Okay. We'll go ahead and need to make sure that we get the additional item from the Coke High Country back on the agenda for next month as well. So any new business? Lauren or Heather, any new business? None? Okay. Any staff announcements?
Yes. So there is a new or a board training date has been scheduled for the fall. So the date that's been set is September 25th, and it will be board training with Dan Clark, who has done it previously. And the plan is to have 2 different trainings during that day on September 25th. The morning training will be located in this meeting room in Annex 151, and the second will be an evening training that will actually be held in Sealy Lake. The Sealy Lake community has requested a training in their area, so the evening meeting will be in that area. So please do mark this as a date on your calendar, and further details will be provided.
Okay. Any other things that we need to talk about? Okay. Thank you for your help tonight. So we will adjourn now. Thank you.